Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking time out today. I know that compliance isn't exactly the topic that people clear their diaries for, but the fact that you're here tells me something. You already know that this matters and you're looking for a better way to do it. My name is Chris Mounds. I'm a product specialist at Evaluagent. Now, some of you may not have come across us before, so let me just take a minute to tell you who we are and why we're the ones talking about this. That line on your screen is the simplest way to describe what we do. Evaluagent is an automated quality management platform built for regulated contact centers. We take every customer conversation, every call, every chat, every email, and we evaluate it automatically using AI that scores interactions the way your best QA manager would. Not a sample, not a random handful, every single one. And we surface the insights that your team needs to act on what matters. We work with contact centers across financial services, insurance, travel, and increasingly gaming and gambling. These are industries where the stakes around compliance are high, where regulators expect evidence, not just policies. And where the old way of doing quality assurance, manually sampling a handful of conversations, that simply doesn't cut it anymore. So, at a high level, our platform does two things. On the left, you've got auto QA and improvement. This is the engine room that scores every conversation against your compliance criteria automatically. And then it links those scores directly to action. So, coaching, feedback, performance plans, not just a dashboard that tells you something went wrong, it's a workflow that helps you fix it. On the right, it's conversation intelligence. This is the insight layer. It analyzes your conversations at scale to surface patterns that you would never spot manually. So, sentiment trends, reasons for contacts, repeat callers, emerging issues. Think of that as your early warning system that tells you where to look before a problem becomes a regulatory, a regulatory finding. So together, they give you complete coverage and complete visibility. But today isn't a product deep dive. Today's about a problem, the compliance challenge facing gaming operators right now, and how the operators who are ahead of it are thinking differently. So here's what we'll cover. Three things. Number one, the compliance gap, why the regulatory landscape in gaming has shifted, and why traditional QA is leaving operators exposed. And then number two, 100% coverage, how Auto QA evaluates every interaction for responsible gaming, dispute handling, and compliance, and how that changes what you can prove to a regulator. And then number three, it's scaling without headcount, how to dramatically get more from your QA team that you already have. So, with that said, let's get into it. Let's start with where the industry actually is right now, because the landscape has shifted faster in gaming than almost any other sector. You'll have seen what's been happening with the state level enforcement. We've seen multiple settlements in the 15 to $20 million range in the last couple of years. And these aren't small operators. These are well known brands. Responsible gaming monitoring isn't optional, it's mandatory. Age verification has to be documented, customer protection, safeguards have to be provable and not just described in a policy document. And here's the part that should make every compliance leader pause. Those fines, they weren't for exotic, hard to detect violations. They were for what regulators described as basic compliance issues. Basic, that word should worry anyone in this space because the regulators are telling you that the bar isn't unreasonably high. You're just not clearing it. So, what are these basic issues? Let me walk you through the ones that we see the most often when it comes to gaming operators. The first one, responsible gaming interventions that are not documented. Deposit limits, self exclusion conversations, cooling off periods. These interactions happen every day. But when the auditor asks for proof, there's silence. The conversations happened, yes, but nobody captured whether the agent followed the correct process. Secondly, age verification that's inconsistent. You have a process, it's in your training manual, but can you prove it's being followed on every single interaction? Not some of them, all of them. And then thirdly, complaint handling that isn't traceable. State regulators want to see that every complaint was handled fairly, consistently, and completely from the beginning until the resolution and documented. And then fourthly, it's the audit trail gap. Annual third party audits are required. State specific compliance has to be demonstrated. And when the auditor arrives, you need documented proof, not a spreadsheet summary, not a sample, proof. And here's the thing that ties all of this together. The question regulators are asking isn't, do you have a compliance policy? Every operator has one. The question is, can you prove it's being followed on every interaction, every day, across every channel? And for most gaming operators, the honest answer right now is not consistently no. So, how would you answer that question? So let's talk about why. Why are well intentioned, well resourced compliance teams still getting caught out? The answer almost always comes back to how QA is structured. Most gaming operators are still running manual quality assurance. QA analyst listens to a call, reads a transcript, fills out a scorecard, logs a score, rinse, repeat. The problem? Well, at best, you're evaluating 1 to 2% of your total interactions. Now, that means 98% of your conversations are completely invisible. You have no idea whether your agents followed the responsible gaming script. You have no idea whether age verification was handled correctly. No idea whether that complaint was resolved properly. So you're making compliance decisions based on a sample that wouldn't pass basic statistical scrutiny. And then we're hoping that the interactions you don't review aren't the ones that end up in front of a regulator. And there's a second problem, and it's structural. Think about how your QA team spends their time. Now, in most operations that we talk to, 70 to 80% of a QA analyst day is spent scoring. So listening, reading, filling in forms. So that leaves 20 to 30% at best for the work that actually changes behaviour, coaching, feedback, development. So you've got a team that's overwhelmed with manual scoring work, covering a tiny fraction of your volume and barely has the time to act on what they find. It's not really a quality program, that's a box ticking exercise. And here's the third issue, your interaction volumes are growing. So new channels, chat, social, messaging, these are adding volume every quarter. Now, some of you are deploying AI agents or chatbots that are handling a growing share of interactions, but your QA headcount, flat, might even be shrinking. So I'll put the question to you the way that we put it to every operator that we work with. If your contact volume doubled tomorrow, could you maintain your compliance standards? And for most teams, the answer is no. And that's absolutely not a criticism of the people. They're doing excellent work. It's a criticism of the model. Manual QA simply cannot scale at the rate regulated gaming demands. So the risk here isn't theoretical. When you're only reviewing 1 to 2%, you're not managing compliance, you're managing luck. And in a regulatory environment where fines start in the millions of dollars, luck isn't a strategy. So, what does the alternative look like? Well, let's talk about what leading gaming operators are actually doing to solve this. Now, the shift is conceptually simple, moving from sampling to census. So, instead of reviewing 1 to 2% of interactions manually, you evaluate 100% of them automatically. Every call, every chat, every email, every messaging interaction scored against your compliance criteria without a human needing to touch it. And this is what AutoQA does. You build a scorecard, the same compliance criteria your team uses today, and the system evaluates every conversation against it. Did the agent follow the responsible gaming script? Was age verification completed? Were the right disclosures made? Was the complaint handled according to your process? Every conversation gets a score. Every conversation gets an audit trail, and nothing falls through the cracks. Now, here's how it works in practice. Firstly, your conversations are ingested. They're pulled in from your contact center platform, whatever that is. Calls are transcribed, chats and emails come in as text. Now, secondly, each conversation is evaluated against your auto QA scorecard. The system analyzes the transcript and scores each compliance criteria using a combination of text analytics and generative AI. Thirdly, the results are surfaced. So dashboards, reports, alerts. You can see compliance rates across your entire operation in real time. And this is a critical shift. Instead of your QA team spending their time scoring, they're spending their time acting on what the scores tell them. They're identifying the agents who need coaching. They're spotting the process gaps that lead to non-compliance. They're focusing on improving performance, not simply measuring it. Now, I want to address something that always comes up at this point, because it should. What about accuracy? Can you trust AI to score compliance? Well, the answer is yes, but not blindly. The best implementations that we see use what's called a blended approach. The AI scores everything, but your QA team still reviews a percentage of those scores. So they're validating the AI's decisions and handling the edge cases that need human judgment. Now, over time, as confidence in the system builds, you can adjust that ratio. Some operators start with 20, 30% with human oversight and then gradually reduce it as they validate accuracy. The point is, you're never handing compliance over to a machine. You're using the machine to give your humans the coverage they could never achieve alone. Now, you also have a testing console. This is a sandbox where you can test and refine your criteria before they go live. And the system tracks every instance where human overrides an AI score. So you can see exactly where the prompts need improvement. But let's bring this back to the specific compliance challenges in gaming, because coverage on its own isn't the whole story. What matters is what you can prove. So every gaming operator that we've spoken to has responsible gaming policies. They've trained their agents, they've built scripts. But when a regulator asks, how many interactions this quarter involved a deposit limit conversation, and in what percentage did your agents follow the correct process? Now, most operators can't actually answer that question with data. Yes, they can answer it with anecdotes. They can answer it with a handful of manually reviewed examples, but they can't answer it with data across the entire operation. But with Auto QA, you can, because every interaction is scored and you can report on responsible gaming adherence at scale. You can tell a regulator exactly what percentage of deposit limit conversations followed your process. You can show them the trend over time. You can show them which teams are strong and which need attention. And you can show them the specific conversations where interventions happened with full transcripts and scoring evidence. This is what being audit ready actually looks like, not scrambling to pull together a sample when the auditor calls, not hoping the conversations you selected happen to be good ones. Instead, a complete searchable scored record of every customer interaction with compliance criteria mapped and scored automatically. So when a state regulator asks for evidence, you don't need to go looking for it. It's already there. Let's talk about disputes, because this is an area where gaming operators are especially exposed. Customer disputes in gaming are different from disputes in other industries. The stakes are higher, pardon the pun. The emotions run hotter, and regulators scrutinise them closely. So whether it's a payout dispute, a contest results challenge, or a complaint about how a self-exclusion request was handled, the regulator wants to see that you handled it fairly, and they want evidence. Now, in a manual QA world, that evidence is fragile. Yes, you might have a recording, you might have some notes, but can you show systematically that your agent followed the correct process? Can you show that every step of your complaint handling procedure was completed? Can you show that across multiple interactions in the same dispute journey? With Auto QA and Customer Journey QA, you can chain related interactions together. So calls, chats, emails, all of that into a single evaluation that covers the entire dispute lifecycle. Every touch point is scored, every step in your process is tracked. The evidence isn't anecdotal, structural. And when a dispute is challenged, whether internally through your agent's dispute process or externally by a regulator, you have a defensible, explainable record. The AI can also show its evidence for every score it gave. Your team can review, validate, and if needed, override those scores with documented reasoning. So this is what moves you from we think we handled it correctly to here's the evidence that we did. So let's close with the question every operations leader is asking: how do I do more without spending more? Now, we talked earlier about the time split. Most QA teams spending 70 to 80% of their day scoring. Auto QA flips that. When the system handles the scoring, your team gets their time back. Now, that's not to do nothing, it's to do the work that actually drives improvement. So, coaching, feedback, root cause analysis, these are the activities that change agent behavior and reduce repeat contacts, improve customer satisfaction, and critically, reduce compliance risk. But they're the first things that get squeezed when your team is buried in manual scoring. So here's what this looks like in practice. Before Auto QA, you're reviewing 1 to 2% of interactions with your existing team. After, you're scoring 100% automatically, and your team is focused on the highest risk, highest impact interactions that need human attention. So you've gone from sampling to census without adding a single head. Your coverage is up, your risk is down, and your QA team is doing work that's actually meaningful, not just filling in scorecards. So it's not a headcount argument. You're making the team you already have dramatically more effective. So let's bring it all together. We've covered a lot of ground in a short time, and I want to leave you with a picture of what this looks like in practice. Evaluation can help you evaluate 100% of your conversations automatically. No more sampling 1 or 2% and hoping the rest are fine. Every call, every chat, every email scored against your compliance criteria. You can prove responsible gaming compliance with data, not anecdotes. So when a regulator asks whether your agents followed the right process on deposit limits or self-exclusion, you can answer with numbers across your entire operation. You can resolve disputes with defensible, explainable evidence. So every score backed by evidence, every interaction traceable from start to resolution, every decision documented. And you can scale your quality without scaling your QA team. Your existing team stop spending 80% of their day scoring and start spending it on coaching, improving, and reducing risk. With all that, you can build a culture of continuous improvement because when you can see what's actually happening across every conversation, you can act on it, not reactively, proactively. And I'll leave you with a thought from Jordan Jones at PrizePicks. PrizePicks uses Evaluagent to continuously improve their customer support and deliver a best in class experience. By analysing thousands of conversations each day, they're able to identify knowledge gaps, elevate agent performance, and drive stronger customer sentiment. Could you imagine the size of Jordan's QA team if they were having to analyze thousands of conversations per day? Evaluate lets them do that automatically. So Thank you for your time today. I hope this has been useful genuinely. And more importantly, hope it's given you something practical to take back to your teams. If you'd like to see any of what we've talked about in action, we'd be delighted to give you a personalised walkthrough. No pressure, no obligation, just a chance to see how this applies to your operation. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks again.